But things start getting a little more interesting with negative numbers and quotient and remainder. By the way, exponentiation with negative numbers works the same way, right? So exponentiation is essentially multiplication, right? So it works as you'd expect. The thing that we are interested in is quotient and remainder. Okay, how does quotient and remainder work with negative numbers? So let's check out how it works. Let's try to figure out how it works. Okay, let me clear this screen and let's do it this way. Let's first do quotient and remainder with positive numbers. So let's say 5, the quotient of 5 and 2 is 2, right? And the remainder of 5 and 2 would be 1. Obviously, right? Because you try to divide 5 by 2. 2 times 2 is 4. That's so 2 is your quotient, and then there's one remainder, one remaining, right? Now, see what happens when I try to find the quotient of minus 5 and divided by 2. So minus 5 divided by 2. And that gives us minus 3. Okay. Now, why is that? Why is that? Also, when I say minus 5 modulo 2, this gives us 1. Again, why is that? Okay. So let's try and understand what's happening behind the scenes. Okay. So you have this operation minus 5 integer division. Okay, I'll call this integer division. The integer division of minus 5 and 2. Why integer division? It's because it gives you an integer as opposed to a floating point number. Okay. The way this integer division or quotient works is it rounds down to the nearest integer, to the next smallest integer, rather, right? Next smallest integer. So minus 5 divided by 2 would be equal to minus 2 decimal 5. In the number line, right? So this is, let's say, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. And this is negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and so on. If minus 2 decimal 5 would be somewhere here. Now the next smallest integer would be minus 3, right? If this were 2.5, 2.5 would be here. And the next smallest integer would be 2, right? But because minus 2.5 is here to the left of the number line, to the left of the 0 at the number line, the next smallest integer would be minus 3, right? Which is why, 5 minus 5 integer division 2 would give you minus 3, right? It gives you minus 3. That's clear, right? Now let's come to the remainder part. Now what is remainder? Let's say you're uh, trying to divide x by y. Now dividing x by y gives you a quotient and a remainder. Okay. Now the way you find that remainder is you multiply this quotient with the denominator, okay, and subtract the result from x. So the formula is r, the remainder, let me call it rem for remainder, equals q times y. I'm sorry, this would be x minus q times y. So it would be x minus q times y. Okay. So let's go back to, let's take an example. Let's take a simpler example in which we have positive numbers, right? So let's say 5 modulo 2. 5, the remainder of 5 modulo 2 is 1, right? The remainder of 5 modulo 2 is 1. How do we get this 1? What we do is we find the quotient, right? So the quotient is 5, integer division of 5 and 2. The quotient is 2, right? So q equals 2, right? X in this case is 5, y is 2, and the remainder is quotient times y subtracted from x, right? So x, which is 5, minus quotient times y, which is 2 times 2, which is equal to 1. That's how we get our remainder when we divide 5 by 2. Okay. Now, what happens when we divide minus 5 by 2? What is the quotient? Firstly, the quotient of minus 5 by 2, as we have seen, is negative 3, right? So let's change this to negative 3. Now the quotient is negative 3. Let's change that as well. Let's change this to negative 3. X is minus 5, so let's add a minus before this 5, and y is 2 as usual. So now the remainder is minus 5, right? Let me clear this as well. So the remainder is, remember the formula of the remainder is x minus q times y, where x equals minus 5 minus q times y, where q is 3, that's our q, quotient is minus 3, times y is 2. So essentially minus 5 minus, I'm sorry, this is 2. Sorry, this is 2. Minus 5 minus 6, which is equal to minus 5 plus 6 is equal to 1, which is what we get. Okay, which is what we get. Now, as you can see, there is quite a lot of mental gymnastics going on behind the negative quotient and remainder, right? Now, arguably, you don't have to use these as much, especially with negative numbers like negative quotient and remainder. But I just want to make sure that you don't get caught off guard if you ever see something like this. Okay, if you ever see a negative number being divided and then try to find the quotient and the remainder, I don't want you to get caught off guard. Okay, this is how it works. The results might be a bit surprising, okay, but this is how it works in the background.